McLean, founder and CEO of Dillon Green, and today I have with me Marion Hill. Marion is Senior Vice President of the Renewables Advisory firm at DNV GL North America, and she's based in Montreal, Canada. Welcome, Marion.
Thank you, Catherine, for the invitation.
So Marion is my first guest outside of the US, so very excited.
Excellent opportunity. Different perspectives, all part of different perspectives.
Exactly. So with over 13 years of experience at DNV GL, you've gone from an independent engineer and senior project manager to a vice president of project development and engineering to the SVP of Renewables Advisory for North America. What would you say are the top requisite skills to succeed in project development in our industry?
I think one of the first things is really being open to new challenges. Companies right now in our industry have so much opportunity to grow. So when we do have leaders that step up, that want to have a new challenge, they're really readily given that opportunity. So it's just that openness, that desire to take on and lead. I think secondly is the willingness to learn. Our industry is changing so quickly right now, whether in terms of technology, in terms of contract mechanisms, in terms of offtake structure, or digitalization. It's that willingness to continue to learn and push yourself beyond what you know, to think about things differently and be open to new ways of solving problems.
Yeah. I want to talk about women in engineering. So you're obviously an engineer. What has it been like for you as a woman working in engineering in our industry? And have you seen much progress over the years with more women pursuing engineering?
So the renewable industry particularly is younger and more progressive and has always attracted more women. When I've gone to oil and gas type industry associations versus the renewable industry association, there's always more women in it. So it has been a very welcoming industry from that perspective. And we are evolving in terms of number of women within management positions or board positions. There's still progress to go, but one of the metrics that I like to look at is whether my new young hires out of university, do they see us as a challenge? Are they being well accompanied and accepted and see their career progression? And those a point where they don't see being a woman as part of our industry as a problem or a barrier, and that they have equal opportunities, I think that is where we are starting to get success. And so that is really motivating to see that our young female engineers see them equal opportunities all the way through. And so that something that I'm really proud of where we've accomplished as an industry.
What are some specific ways DNV is addressing gender? So for example, from 2013 to 2020, you all have increased women in management by about 7%, and roughly 50% of your new hires have been women, which is about 20% higher than your percentage of female employees in 2013. What are the most impactful ways that you've been addressing gender diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's been through unconscious bias trainings or mentorship programs, DEI commitments, etc.?
I don't think that there's one meaningful way to impact diversity. We really have to be pulling on all of the levers that we have access to. On the recruitment side, it's so essential to get a diverse set of candidates applying to your position. So writing the job descriptions differently, posting them on Rise, and taking the extra time it takes to ensure that the candidate pool that is applying is diverse. On the professional development side, it's mentorship. It's adequately providing training opportunities for candidates or employees that want firm training and not just to learn on the job. Mm-hmm. It's breaking down the barriers so that women don't see each other as competition, but as allies. And so that is something that we've been working on for the past couple of years, is building up that allyship amongst women. Particularly when we're in that 20 and 30% range, we can be naturally more competitive. And so that is something that I haven't seen necessarily done as well across or identified necessarily as a point, but I think something that we've been working on. So there's all the way through of getting people on speaking spots and getting people presenting salary differences, and so that you're getting the entire opportunity to attract, retain, promote, and keep great candidates across the category. I think there's another point of having more female in management is enabling that different work day or different work week. Whereas when I started, I saw multiple females drop out of the industry because they couldn't work 4-day weeks. Enabling that to happen and recognizing that is a challenge, and it does keep our women and their diverse perspectives into the labor force is so critical.
So I want to talk a little bit about increasing racial diversity, equity, and inclusion at your firm. What are some top priorities and why? And what are some notable successes and advice that you can share?
Yeah, so the energy transition is complex. Our industry is disrupting the established industry and we're being disrupted. So we need the best diverse perspectives that we can get to help us win in this transformations. And so that does require having racial diversity on our staff. And we have been hiring about 40% people of color for the past couple of years. However, predominantly Indian and Asian staff. And so we have been building up our networks with African Americans, Blacks, and posting our jobs. We started posting our jobs on National Society of Black Engineers and trying to ensure that when we're posting positions, that we're posting outside of our standard networks and trying to attract others. The candidates, the talent is out there, is finding a way to bring them into our industry.
Talking a little bit about industry trends, I want to talk about hydrogen because everybody is talking about hydrogen at the moment. It's like the buzzword I keep getting asked about. So I want to switch topics a little bit and talk about that. So I noticed that you all have recently launched a hydrogen industry consortium. What role do you think hydrogen currently plays and will play in years to come as far as sort of decarbonizing our energy system as quickly as possible?
Great question. So hydrogen is starting from a very minimal amount of our energy system. It's really going to start to grow in about 2025 and then become by 2050, 5% of the energy mix. It's going to be used in heavy vehicles, in deep sea shipping, in heating for buildings, particularly in countries that already have established gas networks. Right now, we're predominantly gray hydrogen, but we're moving to blue hydrogen, which is made through natural gas. And then eventually we'll be able to make it potentially by 2030, 35 economically from predominantly from green hydrogen, so directly from renewables. So we've got a transition happening from the steam methane reforming to the electrolyzers. But there are a couple of projects right now, wind and solar projects, that are already demonstrating renewable green energy to hydrogen. Right now, they're particularly on island nations or projects that are really, really far from the transmission grid. And so instead of building out a new transmission line, they're generating hydrogen. So those are some of the exceptions that we have right now. But as these prototypes continue to be built out and we get the electrolyzers costs down, then we will be able to bring more hydrogen as part of our energy system. And by 2050, we do see hydrogen coming in as an energy storage mechanism and really enabling the greater penetration of renewables on the grid and actually charging hydrogen on a daily basis when we have a peak amount of sun coming onto the grid.
So the last question I have for you is, I was really impressed when I read about DNV, your tax equity deal with ENGIE affiliates from earlier this year, which consisted of 2 gigawatts of new renewable energy generation capacity. I believe it represented one of the largest tax equity financing transactions ever in the US market. What are some projects that you're working on that you're the most proud of and why?
Yeah, that ENGIE transaction was something that we were really proud of. It included 1.5 gigawatts of wind, but also 500 megawatts of solar, and have all of that coming together. And timing at the same time was critical. And so many people involved in getting everything together at the same time. But the other one that we're really interested in, because of the impact that it has on decarbonizing our energy systems, is the solar market. And solar market is a maturing market, but right now there are really literally hundreds of solar developers. And there's a consolidation happening as we see big oil and gas companies, private equity firms, investments coming into the solar space. And so there's a huge consolidation of solar platforms. And so we've worked on over 40 gigawatts of solar M&A this year. And so that's just a tremendous amount of data for benchmarking development operations of solar assets, but it's just demonstrating the rate of pace of change in the solar industry. Yeah. I think the other one that's really exciting is storage PPAs, whereas on wind and solar, the power purchase agreements have been typically the least negotiable contracts, and solar the most negotiable. So really coming in and sitting at the table to negotiate some of the terms and really defining the various different use applications for storage, because it is very different whether it's on the wholesale or retail side, or being used from the utility or from a private independent power producer. It's just really changing the way that these contracts are being designed and implemented is really exciting at the moment.
Well, thanks so much for your time, and it was great learning more about you and your business.
Thank you, Catherine.